I'm going to tell you a story about the worst year of my life, and how it turned into the best decision I ever made. My name is Liam Porter, I'm 29 years old, and I teach English at Roosevelt High School in downtown. I make $52,000 a year, drive a 2015 Honda Civic with 140,000 miles on it, and live in a 600-square-foot studio apartment that smells like old books and coffee. A year ago, I thought all of that made me a failure. Now I know it makes me exactly who I want to be. But let me back up to where this all started. I met Olivia Chen at a charity literacy event 18 months ago. I was there volunteering, helping organize book donations for underfunded schools, the kind of work I do most weekends because I actually give a damn about education. Olivia was there representing her family's foundation, Chen Industries' charitable arm. She walked into that community center like she owned the place, which I later learned her family kind of did. They'd donated the building 5 years earlier. She was stunning, not just physically, though she was that too. Long dark hair, designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The kind of effortless elegance that comes from a lifetime of cotillion classes and European vacations. But what struck me was how she seemed genuinely interested in the work. She asked thoughtful questions about literacy rates, took notes on her phone, even helped me sort books for nearly an hour. When she asked if I wanted to grab coffee afterward, I almost said no. Women who look like Olivia Chen don't usually ask guys like me out for coffee. But she insisted, and we ended up talking until the CAF closed. She was smart, funny, self-deprecating about her privileged upbringing. She made me feel like my work mattered, like teaching wasn't just a job but a calling. For the first time in years I felt seen. We started dating, and for 3 months it was perfect. She'd show up at my apartment with takeout, laughing about how cozy my place was. She came to my classroom once and sat in the back while I taught The Great Gatsby to my juniors, and afterward told me I was born to do this. We went to dive bars and independent bookstores, and she never once made me feel inadequate about my budget. Then I met her family. The Chens live in an estate in the suburbs, the kind of place with a circular driveway and actual columns. When I pulled up in my Civic, the security guard at the gate actually asked if I was making a delivery. That should have been my first warning. Patricia Chen, Olivia's mother, answered the door in what I later learned was a Chanel suit. She looked at me the way you might look at something tracked in on someone's shoe. "You must be Liam," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Olivia's told us so much about you. Come in, please. You can leave your shoes by the service entrance." The service entrance. In retrospect, that moment defined everything that followed. Dinner was excruciating. Richard Chen, Olivia's father, spent most of the meal discussing business acquisitions and investment portfolios, occasionally throwing me softball questions about teaching like he was interviewing a child. "So, Liam, what are the career advancement opportunities in education? Do you aspire to become a principal someday?" "I love teaching," I said. "I don't really want to leave the classroom." He exchanged a glance with Patricia. "How admirable. Passion over profit. That's quite refreshing." The word refreshing landed like an insult. Olivia's brother Marcus barely acknowledged my existence except to ask what kind of car I drove. When I told him, he actually laughed. "A Civic? Jesus, Liv, where'd you find this guy?" Olivia squeezed my hand under the table and changed the subject, but she didn't defend me. That stung more than Marcus's mockery. Over the next few months, the subtle condescension became routine. Every family dinner included some comment about my quaint lifestyle or my charming apartment. Patricia once gave me a gift box of nicer clothes for family photos, complete with brands I'd never heard of and price tags that made my stomach turn. Richard loved to make jokes about me marrying up, always with a laugh that suggested it wasn't really a joke. Marcus treated me like the help. Once at a Chen Industries charity gala, he actually asked me to get him a drink from the bar. When I pointed out I was a guest, he said, Right. I keep forgetting you're part of the family now." The worst part was Olivia. She never stood up for me. She'd laugh along with her family's jokes, or she'd pull me aside later and tell me not to be so sensitive, that this was just how wealthy families teased people they liked. "They're warming up to you," she'd say. "They just need time." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. When Olivia and I got engaged after a year together, I thought things would change. I proposed at the park where we'd had our first real date, got down on one knee in the grass with a ring I'd saved for 6 months to afford. She said yes, crying in that way that made me think this was all real, that she really did love me despite the gulf between our worlds. Her family's reaction was telling. Patricia looked at the ring, a simple half-carat diamond on a white gold band, and said, "Oh, how sweet. It's so modest." Richard clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Welcome to the family, son." I hope you're ready for the big leagues." I didn't know what he meant then. I do now. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moment I should have walked away. It was 3 weeks after the engagement at another family dinner. We were discussing the wedding, and I mentioned wanting to have the ceremony at the botanical gardens where Olivia and I had spent one of our best dates. Patricia literally laughed. "The botanical gardens? Liam, dear, we're talking about a Chen wedding. We have a reputation to maintain. I just thought, since it's meaningful to us, the Riverside estate has already been reserved," Richard interrupted. "We've used them for every major family event for 20 years. The wedding will be there." I looked at Olivia, waiting for her to say something, to remind her parents that this was our wedding, not theirs. She just smiled apologetically and whispered, "It's actually a beautiful venue, babe. You'll love it." That night, driving home alone in my Civic, I felt something crack inside me. But I told myself it was just wedding stress. Every couple goes through this, right? I was being ungrateful. The Chens were paying for everything, giving us a wedding I could never afford on my own. I should have been thankful. I should have run. The next 4 months were a master class in how to make someone feel utterly worthless while pretending to be generous. Patricia took over the wedding planning completely. And I mean completely. She hired a wedding coordinator, selected the color scheme, chose the flowers, the menu, the music, the photographer. Every decision went through her first, and Olivia went along with everything. "Mom has such good taste," she'd say. "We're so lucky she's handling this." When I tried to give input, I was either ignored or overruled. I wanted my high school students' jazz band to play during the cocktail hour. These kids were incredibly talented and it would have meant the world to them. Patricia vetoed it immediately. "We've already hired the Metropolitan Chamber Orchestra," she said. "This is a Chen wedding, Liam. We have standards." I suggested a signature cocktail named after how Olivia and I met, the literacy martini, or something playful. The wedding coordinator literally patted my hand and said, "That's adorable, but we're going with a traditional champagne service. My family and friends." They got seated in the back of the reception hall, practically in a different zip code from the main tables. When I protested, Patricia explained that certain arrangements need to be made for optics and flow. "Your mother is a public school nurse, correct?" she asked. "And your father works in HVAC. We'll make sure they're comfortable with others from similar backgrounds." Similar backgrounds. Like my parents were a different species. The tuxedo situation was its own special humiliation. Patricia insisted all groomsmen rent tuxedos from a specific designer boutique. When Kevin, my best friend since college, called me about the price, I nearly had a heart attack. "Dude, they want $800 to rent a tux for 1 day," he said. "I don't even own a suit that costs $800. I tried to talk to Olivia about it. "Babe, that's a lot of money for my friends. Can we maybe find a more affordable option?" She looked at me like I'd suggested everyone wear clown costumes. "Liam, it's 1 day. It's our wedding. Can't your friends make a small sacrifice? $800 isn't a small sacrifice for most people." "Well, maybe you should have friends who can afford nice things." The words hung in the air between us. She realized what she'd said and tried to backtrack, but I'd heard it clearly. My friends, the people who'd been there for me through everything, weren't good enough for a Chen wedding. I paid for the tuxedos myself, maxed out a credit card I'd just paid off. Told the guys it was a wedding gift so they wouldn't feel bad. The money became a constant source of tension, though it was never framed that way. The Chens would present each wedding expense as a gift, a generous offering I could never hope to match. The $50,000 dress Olivia chose, the $15,000 floral arrangements, the $30,000 photography package. "We're giving you the wedding you could never afford," Patricia said once, and I think she genuinely believed she was being kind. When I tried to contribute financially, I'd saved $5,000, nearly everything I had. Richard actually laughed. "Son, your annual salary wouldn't cover the flowers. Save your money for the honeymoon Olivia wants to take." "Oh wait, we're paying for that too, aren't we, darling?" Olivia giggled. Actually giggled at her father's joke about my inadequacy. I should have called it off right then. But I was in too deep, drowning in sunk costs and false hope and the desperate belief that this would all be worth it once we were married and away from her family's influence. Then came the PR profile. Chen Industries' marketing team wanted to do a feature story about the wedding for their corporate magazine and social media. "Charitable heiress marries humble public school teacher," the headline would read. They wanted photos of Olivia visiting my classroom, of us at modest restaurants, of me looking suitably grateful for her family's generosity. The photographer actually directed me. "Can you look a little more odd, like you can't believe your luck?" I couldn't believe my luck, but not in the way they meant. Kevin pulled me aside after the engagement party. where the Chens had displayed a slideshow of Olivia's life that included exactly 2 photos of me, both from the past month, both clearly staged. "Brother, I need to ask you something," Kevin said, his face serious. "Are you actually happy? Because from where I'm standing, this family is treating you like a rescue project, and Olivia's letting them." "It's just wedding stress," I said automatically. "It'll be better after we're married." "Will it? Because I've watched you get smaller and smaller over the past year. You barely talk about your students anymore. You don't come to our poker nights. You're not yourself." "I'm fine. You're not fine. And I'm worried that you're going to marry this woman and wake up 5 years from now wondering what happened to the guy you used to be." I told Kevin he was wrong. I told myself he was wrong. But late at night, alone in my apartment, I knew he was right. The final straw of this period came 3 weeks before the wedding. Olivia and I were supposed to have dinner, just the 2 of us, something we hadn't done in months. I'd made reservations at the little Italian place where we'd had our 3rd date, the one with the candles and wine bottles and the owner who remembered your name. Olivia canceled an hour before, texting that her mother needed help with final seating arrangements. When I showed up at the Chen estate to talk to her, I found Olivia, Patricia, and Marcus in the study, laughing over champagne while they mocked the thank you notes I'd written to guests. "We're so grateful for your generosity," Marcus read in an exaggerated, earnest voice, mimicking me. "Jesus, does this guy ever stop being grateful? It's pathetic." Olivia laughed. She saw me standing in the doorway, and her face changed, but not fast enough. Not before I saw that she'd been laughing at me with her family. "Babe, we were just—" "I'm going home," I said. She didn't follow me. I sat in my Civic in their driveway for 20 minutes, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel. I should have driven away and never come back. But instead, I drove home, crawled into bed, and told myself that 3 weeks from now, this would all be over and we'd start our real life together. God, I was such an idiot. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. We were supposed to stay apart according to tradition. So I was in one of the Chen estate's guest rooms, a space larger than my entire apartment, filled with furniture worth more than my car. Around 2 a.m. I gave up on sleep and decided to get some water. The house was dark except for the soft glow of landscape lighting through the windows. I made my way downstairs in my t-shirt and boxers, padding barefoot across marble floors that probably cost more per square foot than I made in a month. That's when I heard voices from Richard's study. The door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. I recognized the voices immediately. Richard, Patricia, Marcus, and Olivia. They were talking and laughing, the sound of glasses clinking suggesting they were drinking something expensive. I should have announced myself, should have walked in and asked to join them. But something in the tone, something sharp and wrong, made me freeze in the hallway outside. "I still can't believe you're actually going through with this charade tomorrow," Patricia said. My heart stopped. "Mother, we've been over this 100 times, Olivia replied, and I'd never heard that tone from her before. Bored, dismissive, nothing like the sweet voice she used with me. The foundation board eats up this kind of story. Poor teacher, rich heiress, it's perfect optics. We've gotten more positive press in the past 6 months than we have in 5 years. The grant committee specifically mentioned how much they appreciated our commitment to diversity and accessibility," Richard added. "Your little teacher project sealed the deal, sweetheart. Morrison Foundation is practically begging to give us their money now." Morrison Foundation, the $50 million grant Chen Industries had been pursuing for their supposed charitable initiatives. I'd heard Richard talk about it at dinner parties, how crucial it was for the company's public image and expansion plans. "Does he actually think you love him?" Marcus asked, and I could hear the grin in his voice. "This is fucking gold. The way he looks at you like you're some kind of angel," Olivia laughed, actually laughed. "He's sweet. He believes what he wants to believe. Marcus, you should have seen him when I said yes to the proposal. He cried, actual tears. Like he couldn't believe someone like me would want someone like him." My legs went weak. I pressed my back against the hallway wall, my hands starting to shake. "The real genius," Olivia continued, "is that once we're married I can keep seeing Derek without any suspicion. Liam's so grateful to be with me, so convinced he's the luckiest guy in the world he won't question anything. I can do whatever I want. Derek fucking Morrison, the trust fund heir she'd dated before me. The one she said she'd broken up with because he was too immature. They were still together. She'd been with him this whole time. How long do you plan to keep this up?" Richard asked. 2 years minimum, Olivia said matter-of-factly, like she was discussing a business contract. "Long enough for the foundation image to solidify, for the grant money to come through and be properly allocated. Then a quiet divorce. We'll make him sign an NDA as part of the settlement, offer him enough money that he can't refuse. He's a teacher, for God's sake. $100,000 will seem like a fortune to him. Make sure the prenup is ironclad, Patricia added. I don't want him getting any ideas about our family money. Already handled. He signed it 2 weeks ago without even reading it properly. I told him it was just standard procedure and he believed me. He trusts me completely. The contempt in her voice when she said that word trusts made something in me break and reform into something harder, colder. I have to give you credit, Olivia, Marcus said. When you came up with this scheme, I thought you were crazy. But you've played him perfectly. The poor guy is so in love with you, he can't see what's right in front of his face. It helps that he's desperate, Olivia said. He's 29, watching all his friends get married, stuck in a dead-end career making nothing. I represented everything he thought he couldn't have. Of course he fell for it, dead-end career. The work I loved that gave my life meaning, that changed kids' lives every single day, she thought it was a dead end. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone when I pulled it from my pocket. But I managed to open the recording app. I captured the last few minutes of their conversation, every vicious word. Well, Richard said, raising his glass, here's to the wedding of the year. To Olivia for her brilliant performance, and to poor Liam, who has no idea he's a pawn in a much larger game. To Liam, they chorused, laughing. I stood there in that hallway for I don't know how long after they finished. Long enough that my legs started cramping, long enough that the ice in their glasses melted, long enough for my entire world to disintegrate and reconstitute into something I didn't recognize. Finally, when I heard them starting to wrap up, I moved. I went back upstairs to the guest room, closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I couldn't. I just felt empty, hollow, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything that made me human. The woman I loved had loved didn't exist. She'd never existed. Olivia Chen was a character she'd been playing, and she'd played it so perfectly I'd built my entire future around her. I looked at my phone, 3:47 a.m. The recording was there, saved, backed up to my cloud storage, evidence of the cruelest con I'd ever experienced. I could leave right now, pack my bag, get in my Civic, drive away, and never look back. No one would blame me. But as I sat there in that expensive guest room, surrounded by the suffocating luxury of the Chen estate, I realized I didn't want to run. I wanted something else. I wanted justice. The sun rose and I watched it through the window, not having slept at all. Around 7 a.m., there was a knock on the door. Olivia in a silk robe, her hair perfect, her smile bright. Good morning, babe. She came in and kissed me. And I let her. I can't wait to marry you today. I barely slept, I was so excited. I looked at her face, searching for some sign of the woman who'd mocked me hours earlier. But she was perfect. The performance was flawless. Me too, I said. This is going to be a day no one forgets. She laughed and kissed me again. I love you so much. I know exactly how much, I said. She didn't catch it. The hours before the ceremony passed in a blur. I went through the motions like a zombie getting dressed in the $3,000 tuxedo Patricia had insisted I wear, taking photos with my groomsmen, smiling for the cameras. Everyone kept saying how happy I looked. I wondered what they were seeing that I wasn't feeling. Kevin pulled me aside while we were getting ready. Brother, you okay? You look, I don't know, different. I'm getting married, I said. Isn't that what different is supposed to look like? He studied my face. If you want to bolt, just say the word. My truck's out back. We can be in Canada by dinner. For a second, I actually considered it. But then I remembered the recording on my phone, remembered their laughter, remembered 2 years minimum, and I shook my head. I'm not running, I said. Not this time. The Riverside estate had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. 10,000 white roses, crystal chandeliers hanging from the outdoor pavilion, a string quartet playing pachelbel, 300 guests in designer clothes sipping Dom Perignon while they waited for the ceremony to begin. My parents sat in the 5th row, looking uncomfortable in their rented formal wear. My mom had tears in her eyes, happy tears, she thought. My dad gave me a thumbs up. They were so proud. They thought their son had made it, had landed the perfect woman, had secured a perfect future. I was going to destroy that illusion in about 20 minutes. The bridesmaids processed down the aisle in their $800 dresses. Then the music changed to the wedding march and Olivia appeared. She was objectively stunning. The $50,000 dress fit her like it had been painted on. Her hair was perfect, her makeup was perfect. She looked like every man's dream, walking down that aisle with her father. I watched her and felt nothing, no love, no anger, no pain. Just a cold, clear certainty about what I was about to do. Richard handed her to me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Take care of my daughter, he said. I'll give her exactly what she deserves, I replied. Olivia squeezed my hands, her eyes shining with what I now knew were fake tears. The priest began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join Olivia Patricia Chen and Liam James Porter in holy matrimony. I half listened as he went through the traditional ceremony language. Olivia was gazing at me with what looked like genuine adoration. The crowd was silent, reverent, believing they were witnessing true love. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. The silence stretched. I let it hang there for a long moment. Before we continue, I said quietly, I need to do something. Olivia's eyes widened slightly. The priest looked confused, but I'd already pulled out my phone. Earlier that morning I'd befriended the AV technician, a kid named Jason who was working the sound system for the ceremony. I'd told him I wanted to play a surprise song for my bride, something romantic and unexpected. He'd helped me connect my phone to the venue speakers. Now I pulled up the recording and hit play. Patricia's voice rang out across the estate, crystal clear. I still can't believe you're actually going through with this charade tomorrow. The effect was instantaneous. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Olivia's face went white. I watched recognition and horror dawn as she realized what was happening. The recording continued. Every word, every laugh, every cruel joke at my expense echoed through those expensive speakers. The crowd was dead silent except for the voices of the Chen family destroying me. Your little teacher project sealed the deal. Does he actually think you love him? This is fucking gold. Once we're married, I can keep seeing Derek without any suspicion. 2 years minimum. Then a quiet divorce. I watched Olivia's face cycle through emotions: shock, fear, panic, and finally calculation. She reached for my phone, but I stepped back. Liam, stop this right now, she hissed. This isn't funny. You're right, I said. It's not. The recording played on. Patricia's voice, make sure the prenup is ironclad. Olivia's response, he signed it without reading it properly. He trusts me completely, Marcus. You've played him perfectly. When it ended, the silence was deafening. 300 people staring at the altar in shock. I looked out at them, society friends, business associates, family members, all of them witnessing the Chen family's spectacular unmasking. Then I did the thing I'd been planning since 3:47 a.m. I have a confession to make, I said, my voice carrying across the silent crowd. My name is Liam James Porter. I'm a high school English teacher. I make $52,000 a year. I live in a 600-square-foot studio apartment. I drive a 2015 Honda Civic with 140,000 miles on it. I paused, looking at Olivia, at her parents, at Marcus, and I am fucking proud of every single one of those things. Patricia had gone completely white. Richard was standing, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Marcus looked like he wanted to rush the altar. What the Chens don't know, I continued, is that my full name is Liam James Porter Morrison. My grandmother is Elizabeth Morrison, the founder and director of the Morrison Foundation. The impact was immediate. I heard gasps, saw faces in the crowd change from confusion to understanding. The Morrison Foundation wasn't just any charitable organization. It was one of the largest private foundations in the state, with assets over $2 billion. My grandmother asked me to evaluate the Chen family personally before making any decisions about their grant application, I said. She wanted to know if they were truly committed to charitable work or if they were just using philanthropy as a PR tool. I looked at Richard. I'd say they failed that evaluation, wouldn't you? This is slander, Patricia said, finding her voice. The recording is fake. He's making all of this up. But my mother was already standing up from the fifth row. My mother, Elizabeth Morrison's only daughter, who I'd asked to stay quiet about our family connection when I first started dating Olivia. It's all true, she said, her voice shaking with anger. Every word. I raised my son to value character over wealth, substance over status, and your family showed him exactly who you are. The crowd erupted, people pulling out phones, whispering to each other, a few business associates slipping out early. I saw the president of Morrison Foundation stand up and leave, his expression disgusted. Olivia grabbed my arm. Liam, please, we can fix this. I was just nervous, I didn't mean any of it. I looked at her hand on my sleeve and gently removed it. You meant every word, and I believe you. That's the difference between us, Olivia. I believed you when you said you loved me, and I believe you now. I turned to the crowd one last time. I apologize to everyone who traveled here today, but I couldn't marry someone who sees me as a project, a pawn, or a 2-year charitable obligation. Then I walked down the aisle, still in my tuxedo, my groomsmen falling in behind me like an honor guard. Kevin clapped me on the shoulder as we passed the last row. That's the Liam I remember, he said quietly. Behind us I could hear chaos erupting, Olivia screaming my name, Patricia trying to do damage control, Richard shouting about lawsuits, Marcus demanding someone stop me. But I was already gone. We ended up at Murphy's Pub, a dive bar 3 blocks from my apartment, me and 6 guys in wedding tuxedos, drawing stares from the regular afternoon crowd. I bought the first round with money I'd saved for the honeymoon to Maldives, Olivia's choice, naturally. $15,000 for 2 weeks at a resort I'd never heard of. To Liam, Kevin said, raising his beer. For having the biggest balls in the tri-state area. They all drank to that. I just sat there, nursing my beer, watching condensation run down the glass, trying to process what I'd just done. My phone had been vibrating nonstop. I finally pulled it out and saw 43 missed calls. Ashley, her parents, Brittany, the wedding coordinator, even a few numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it off. How you feeling, brother? Kevin asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me tomorrow. Trevor, another groomsman, leaned forward. Dude, look on her face when that recording played. I've never seen someone go from smug to terrified that fast. Did you see Marcus try to grab your phone? Someone else added. I thought he was going to tackle you at the altar. They were laughing now, the adrenaline and shock wearing off into something like celebration. But I couldn't join them. I just felt empty, hollowed out. I'd loved her. Despite everything, despite knowing it was all a lie, I'd loved the version of Olivia I'd believed was real. And that version had died last night in her parents' study. Around 7 p.m. my dad called Kevin's phone. I stepped outside to take it. Son, he said, his voice thick with emotion, your mother and I were so proud of you. What you did today took more courage than most people show in their entire lives. I humiliated her in front of 300 people, Dad. She humiliated herself. You just made sure everyone knew it. He paused. Are you okay? I don't know yet. Come stay with us for a while. Your mother's already making up your room. I need to be alone right now. Process this. I understand. But Liam, don't you dare feel guilty about this. She chose to lie. She chose to use you. You just chose not to let her get away with it. After I hung up, I walked the 3 blocks to my apartment. The same route I'd taken 1,000 times, past the bodega where Ahmed always had my coffee ready, past the bookstore where I spent too much money, past the park where kids from my school played basketball. My apartment looked exactly how I'd left it that morning. Books everywhere, papers to grade stacked on my desk, a coffee maker still half full, my life small and ordinary and completely untouched by the Chen family's money and influence. I sat on my couch and finally let myself feel it. Not sadness exactly, not heartbreak like I'd expected, more like relief, like I'd been holding my breath for 18 months and could finally exhale. My phone still off sat on my coffee table. I knew when I turned it back on there would be hundreds of messages, Olivia begging, Patricia threatening, people I barely knew asking for the story. But right now in my small apartment with my old couch and my overflowing bookshelves, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, peace. I slept better that night than I had in over a year. I gave it 2 weeks before I turned on social media again. When I did, the story had taken on a life of its own. Chen Industries stock had dropped 23%. 3 board members had resigned, citing ethical concerns about leadership. The business pages were brutal. Chen family's charitable image shattered by wedding scandal, and Morrison Foundation denies grant after shocking revelation. The Morrison Foundation had released an official statement, which my grandmother showed me over coffee at her brownstone. After careful evaluation, the Morrison Foundation has determined that Chen Industries does not align with our core values of authenticity, integrity, and genuine commitment to charitable work. We will be directing our grant funding to organizations that demonstrate true dedication to their stated missions. I'm sorry, Grandma, I said. I know you put a lot of time into evaluating them. She squeezed my hand. Darling boy, you saved us from making a terrible mistake. Imagine if we'd given them $50 million, only to discover what they really were later. You did exactly what I asked you to do. You showed me their character. I didn't mean to fall in love with her. Of course you didn't. She was playing a role, and she played it well. That's not your failure, Liam. That's hers. The messages from the Chens were predictable. Richard had his lawyers send a cease and desist letter, threatening to sue me for defamation and breach of contract. My grandmother's lawyers sent back a letter that basically said, try it, along with an offer to provide the original recording and testimony in any legal proceeding. They backed off immediately. Patricia called my mother 17 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails about working this out and protecting both families' reputations. My mom blocked her number after the 5th call. Marcus lost his position at Whitmore & Associates, a partner firm that did business with Morrison Foundation interests. Apparently, having a brother-in-law who'd been exposed as complicit in a cynical marriage scheme wasn't great for client relations. But it was Olivia's messages that were the most varied. They started apologetic. *, Liam, please, we need to talk. I know I made mistakes, but I really do care about you. What you heard wasn't the whole story. Please give me a chance to explain." Then angry, "Asterisk, you ruined my life because your ego couldn't handle that my family has money. You're pathetic. This is why you'll always be just a teacher." Then desperate, "Asterisk, I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. I see now how wrong I was. Please just talk to me. I love you. I really do love you. Give me a chance to prove it." Then manipulative, "Asterisk, Derek dumped me because of you. My parents aren't speaking to me. Everyone I know has turned their back on me. I hope you're happy with what you've done." I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? She'd shown me exactly who she was, and I'd finally believed her. The most interesting message came from Rachel Thornton, one of Olivia's bridesmaids, who'd only met a handful of times, and she'd always been quiet, almost uncomfortable at Chen family events. Asterisk, "Liam, I wanted you to know that some of us saw what was happening. I tried to talk to Olivia about how her family treated you, but she shut me down every time. What she did was cruel and calculated. And you deserved so much better. I'm sorry I didn't speak up louder. For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave." I wrote back. Asterisk, "Thank you for seeing it. That means more than you know. Work became my sanctuary." I returned to Roosevelt High the Monday after the canceled wedding, and my students knew nothing about the drama. To them, I was still just Mr. Porter, the guy who made them analyze poetry and write essays about symbolism. My principal, Dr. Chen, no relation, called me into her office that first day back. "I read about what happened," she said gently. "Do you need some time off?" "No," I said. "I need to be here. I need to remember why I do this," she nodded. "Then welcome back. Your students missed you," and they had. I walked into my first period class, and Marcus Johnson, a junior who'd been struggling with The Great Gatsby all semester, had left a note on my desk. "Mr. P, I finally get it. Gatsby wasn't chasing Daisy. He was chasing who he thought she was. Hope you had a good break." I sat at my desk before class started and realized that 17-year-old Marcus understood more about my situation than I'd understood myself a month ago. Teaching saved me those first few weeks. The routine, the purpose, the daily reminder that my work mattered. Every student who finally understood a difficult concept, every essay that showed real critical thinking, every moment when I saw a kid's eyes light up because they'd connected with a piece of literature. It all reminded me why I'd chosen this path. This wasn't a dead-end career. This was my calling. Kevin checked on me every day, sometimes just showing up at my apartment with pizza or beer. One night, about 3 weeks after the wedding, he asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Are you going to start dating again?" "I can't even think about that right now." "I get it. But brother, you can't let what she did make you stop believing in good people. Not everyone is Olivia Chen. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But trusting someone again, I don't know if I can." He was quiet for a moment. "You remember Sophia Garcia from the math department?" I did, vaguely. We'd been on the same curriculum committee last year, but I'd barely noticed her. I'd been too wrapped up in Olivia to pay attention to much else. "She asked about you the other day. Wanted to make sure you were okay. That's nice of her." Kevin gave me a look. "Liam, she's been interested in you for over a year. Everyone in your department knows it except you. I was engaged, and now you're not. I'm not saying you need to jump into anything. I'm just saying when you're ready, there are good people out there. People who won't make you feel like you need to apologize for who you are." I thought about that conversation for days. Then, one morning in the teacher's lounge, Sophia was making coffee when I walked in. "Hey Liam," she said, smiling. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected," I said honestly. "I'm glad." She poured her coffee, then turned to me. "Listen, if you ever want to talk or just get out of your own head for a while, I'm around. No pressure, no agenda. Just, if you need a friend." I really looked at her for the first time. She was pretty in a natural, effortless way. No designer clothes, no perfect makeup. Just Sophia in jeans and a sweater, holding a coffee mug from the school bookstore. "I'd like that," I said. We started having coffee together between classes, then lunch in the teacher's lounge. She made me laugh with stories about her students' creative excuses for late homework. She never asked about Olivia or the wedding unless I brought it up first. She just existed beside me, comfortable and easy and real. One afternoon, she mentioned she was going to see a play at the community theater that weekend. "Want to come?" she asked. "My friend's in it, and I have an extra ticket. Is this a date?" I asked before I could stop myself. She considered this. "Do you want it to be? I don't know what I want yet, but I'd like to go. As friends who might eventually be something else." She smiled. "That works for me." The play was terrible, a community theater production of Our Town with questionable acting and even worse lighting. but sitting next to Sophia listening to her whisper snarky commentary about the stage blocking, I laughed harder than I had in months. Afterwards we got ice cream from the place down the street, even though it was October and getting cold. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said. "And you can tell me it's none of my business." "Okay. Do you regret it? The wedding, the confrontation, all of it?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. I regret falling for her in the first place. I regret not seeing the signs earlier. But the wedding, no, I needed to do that. I needed to take back my dignity. "Good," she said. "Because that was the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do." Half the school watched the video. "There's a video." "Oh yeah, someone recorded it on their phone and it went viral." "You didn't know?" I hadn't. I'd been avoiding social media so completely I'd missed my own public humiliation becoming internet famous. "Don't watch it," Sophia said quickly. "It'll just make you relive it. The important thing is everyone who saw it was on your side." The comments were brutal to her family. We walked back to our cars in the parking lot, and when we got to hers, a slightly beat-up Subaru with a Roosevelt High parking sticker, she turned to me. "Thank you for tonight. I had fun." "Me too. And Liam, for what it's worth, I think you're pretty incredible exactly as you are. Teacher salary, old car, small apartment and all." She kissed me on the cheek and drove away, leaving me standing there in the parking lot, feeling something I hadn't felt since before I met Olivia, hope. 6 months after the wedding that never was, my life looked completely different, and by different, I mean it looked exactly the same, except now I appreciated it. The Chen Industries fallout had been spectacular and thorough. They'd filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after losing 3 major contracts and facing an SEC investigation into their charitable foundation's finances. Turned out, when the Morrison Foundation investigation started, other organizations looked closer too. The Chens hadn't been using their charity for PR optics, they'd been using it for tax fraud. Richard and Patricia were facing criminal charges. Their lawyer had reached out to my grandmother about a plea deal, but she'd declined to get involved. "Let justice take its natural course," she'd said. Olivia had moved to Seattle to stay with her aunt, disappearing from social media entirely. I heard through the grapevine, through Kevin, who'd heard from a friend who followed drama, that Derek had dumped her the day after the wedding scandal broke. Apparently, being associated with fraud investigations wasn't his style. Marcus lost everything. His job, his condo, his trust fund access. Last I heard, he was working in insurance sales somewhere in Delaware. I didn't take pleasure in their downfall exactly, but I didn't feel guilty about it either. They'd built their empire on deception and discovered that foundations made of lies don't hold up under scrutiny. As for me, I was dating Sophia. We'd been taking it slow, coffee dates, walks in the park, helping each other grade papers. She'd met my parents last month, and my mother had pulled me aside afterwards. "This is what real love looks like, honey," she'd said, tears in her eyes. And she was right. Sophia didn't care that my apartment was small, or that my car was old, or that I made a teacher's salary. When we went out to dinner, she insisted on splitting the check. When I cooked for her at my place, she brought wine and dessert. When I told her about my students' successes, she listened like it was the most important thing in the world. Last week, she came to watch my AP literature class perform scenes from Hamlet. Afterward, while my students were packing up, she told them how lucky they were to have me as a teacher. "Mr. Porter doesn't just teach you about books," she said. "He teaches you how to think critically, how to question the world, how to find meaning in complexity. That's a rare gift." My students had looked at me differently after that, with respect, sure, but also with something else. Pride, maybe. Like they understood that what we did in that classroom mattered. That night, Sophia and I were in my apartment grading papers on opposite ends of my couch, our feet touching in the middle. She looked up from a particularly brutal geometry exam. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Always. I've been in love with you since the curriculum committee meeting where you defended the summer reading program. You gave this whole speech about how reading transforms lives, and you were so passionate, and I thought, that's exactly the kind of person I want in my life." "That was over a year ago," I said. "Why didn't you say anything? You were with someone else. And then you were healing from someone else." "I was waiting for the right time. Is this the right time?" she smiled. "I think so." "Is it?" I put down my red pen and moved closer to her on the couch. "Sophia, I need you to know something. I'm still figuring out how to trust people again. I'm still working through what happened with Olivia. I'm probably going to be weird about things sometimes." "I know," she said gently. "And that's okay. We'll figure it out together. I make $52,000 a year. I make $54,000. So I guess I'm the sugar mama in this relationship." I laughed. "I drive a Honda Civic with 150,000 miles on it now. My Subaru has 160,000. I win. My apartment is 600 square feet. Mine's 550. You're practically a real estate mogul. I kissed her then, and it felt nothing like kissing Olivia. There was no performance, no calculation, no wondering if I was measuring up. It was just two people who genuinely liked each other, finding their way to something real. When we broke apart, she was smiling. I love you, Liam Porter. I love that you're a teacher. I love your old car and your small apartment and your massive book collection. I love how you talk about your students like they're the most important people in the world. I love all of it, and I love you. I love you too, I said, and meant it completely. That weekend, Sophia and I went hiking in the state park upstate. We took my Civic because her Subaru had a check engine light on. We packed sandwiches and cheap beer and spent the afternoon climbing to a lookout point where you could see the entire valley. You know what I realized, I said as we sat on a rock eating turkey sandwiches and watching the sun start to set. The Chens were right about one thing. I was a project, just not the kind they thought. What do you mean? I was my own project. Rebuilding myself, figuring out who I was without someone telling me I wasn't enough, learning to value what I have instead of feeling guilty for what I don't. Sophia leaned against my shoulder. And how's that project going? Pretty well, actually. I'm dating a woman who makes more money than me and doesn't care. I have a job I love that will never make me rich but fills me with purpose every single day. I have a car that runs, an apartment full of books, and friends who showed up for me when it mattered most. Sounds like a pretty great life to me. Yeah, I said, looking out at the valley. It really is. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandmother, Sunday dinner at my place. I want to meet this young woman you've been telling me about. I showed it to Sophia. Ready to meet the billionaire grandmother? She laughed. Will she judge me for my Subaru? She drives a 20-year-old Mercedes. You'll be fine. On the drive home, Sophia fell asleep in the passenger seat, her hand in mine. I thought about the past year, the pain, the betrayal, the humiliation, and finally the healing. I thought about Olivia Chen and wondered if she'd found any peace in Seattle, if she'd learned anything from what happened. Then I realized I didn't really care. She'd made her choices, I'd made mine, and my choices had led me here. Driving home in my old Honda with a woman who loved me for exactly who I was, heading back to a life that was modest and meaningful and completely my own. If someone had told me a year ago that walking away from a Chen wedding would lead to this, I'm not sure I would have believed them. But here's what I know now. Real love doesn't make you smaller. It doesn't ask you to apologize for who you are or what you've chosen. It doesn't measure your worth in dollar signs or social status. Real love sees a 600 square foot apartment as cozy. It sees a 2015 Honda Civic as reliable. It sees a teacher's salary as honorable work that shapes the future. Real love feels like coming home. And for the first time in my adult life, I was finally truly home.